Marcus Johnson was not your average 17-year-old. While most teenagers spent their afternoons playing video games or scrolling through social media, Marcus could often be found in his family's garage, surrounded by tools and machine parts. He had always been fascinated by how things worked, whether it was a broken toaster, a rusty bicycle, or the old lawnmower that refused to start. To Marcus, every problem was like a puzzle waiting to be solved, and he loved solving puzzles. His hands moved with precision as he tightened a bolt on the lawnmower engine. The sun filtered through the cracks in the garage door, casting long shadows across the cluttered space. It was a warm Saturday afternoon in Atlanta, Georgia, and the hum of neighborhood kids playing outside filled the air. But Marcus barely noticed. His focus was sharp, his mind racing ahead to the next step in fixing the stubborn machine. "Marcus," his mom called from inside the house. "Your phone's ringing." He wiped his greasy hands on a rag and stepped into the kitchen, where his phone buzzed loudly on the counter. Glancing at the screen, he saw an unfamiliar number. Normally, he wouldn't have answered, but something told him to pick up. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was instinct. "Hello?" Marcus said cautiously. On the other end of the line was a woman whose voice sounded both frantic and professional. "Hi. Is this Marcus Johnson? I'm Lydia Carter, and I work for Ryan Prescott." The name didn't mean much to Marcus at first. Sure, he'd heard of Ryan Prescott, the billionaire CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the country. But what did someone like that want with him? "Yes, this is Marcus," he replied, trying to sound confident despite the nerves creeping into his chest. "Great," Lydia said. Her tone clipped and hurried. "Listen, we're in kind of a bind, and I was hoping you might be able to help us out." Marcus frowned. "Help with what?" "Well," Lydia hesitated for a moment, then plunged ahead. "Our private jet broke down at the airstrip near your area. We've got mechanics here, but they can't seem to figure out what's wrong. Someone recommended you, because of your reputation for fixing stuff." Marcus blinked in disbelief. A private jet? Him? This had to be some kind of prank. But Lydia sounded serious, and the urgency in her voice made it hard to dismiss. "I don't know anything about jets," Marcus admitted, scratching the back of his neck. "I mean, I fix small engines and stuff, but you're our best shot right now," Lydia interrupted. "Look, I'll make it worth your while. Triple your usual rate if you can come take a look." Triple his rate? That kind of money would cover months' worth of expenses for his family. Still, Marcus wasn't sure. Fixing a jet was way beyond anything he'd ever done before. What if he messed it up? What if everyone laughed at him? Before he could overthink it, he heard himself say, "Okay, I'll come check it out." Lydia let out a relieved sigh. "Thank you so much, Marcus. I'll text you the address. Just hurry, okay?" As soon as the call ended, Marcus stared at his phone, half expecting it to explode. Had that really just happened? Shaking his head, he grabbed his toolbox and headed outside. His mom was standing there, arms crossed and eyebrows raised. "What's going on?" she asked. "I think I just got hired to fix a private jet," Marcus muttered, still dazed. His mom chuckled. "A private jet? You're kidding, right?" "Nope." Marcus climbed into their old sedan and started the engine. "I'll explain later, wish me luck." The drive to the airstrip felt surreal. The closer he got, the more luxurious everything looked. Gated entrances, shiny hangars, and rows of sleek airplanes gleamed under the bright Georgia sun. When Marcus finally pulled up to the designated spot, he couldn't help but feel completely out of place. Here he was, a skinny black teenager, in jeans and a hoodie, stepping out of a beat-up car onto a runway full of millionaires' toys. A group of people stood near a massive white and gold jet, looking stressed and annoyed. One of them, a tall, sharply dressed man, was talking animatedly on the phone while pacing back and forth. Another person, presumably Lydia, spotted Marcus and waved him over. "You must be Marcus," she said, shaking his hand. "Thanks for coming on such short notice." "No problem," Marcus replied, glancing around nervously. "So, what exactly is wrong?" "We're not entirely sure," Lydia admitted. The engine conked out during taxiing, and none of these guys can pinpoint the issue. Can you at least take a look? Marcus nodded and followed her to the jet. The mechanic standing nearby gave him curious looks, some smirking or whispering to each other. Clearly they weren't expecting much from a kid like him, but Marcus ignored them. He'd faced doubters before, and he knew the only way to prove himself was to get the job done. Climbing into the cockpit, Marcus took a deep breath. The control panel was a maze of buttons, switches, and dials, all foreign territory to him. But beneath the surface, he reasoned, the principles were the same as any other machine. Something wasn't working properly, and it was his job to find out why. For the next hour, Marcus worked methodically. He crawled under the fuselage, inspected wiring, and listened carefully to the engine sounds. At one point, he even asked Lydia to turn the power on so he could observe its behavior firsthand. Slowly but surely, pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Finally, after double-checking his findings, Marcus emerged from the jet with a satisfied grin. "I think I found the problem," he announced. Everyone turned to look at him, skepticism written all over their faces. Even Lydia seemed unsure. "What is it?" she asked cautiously. "It's the fuel injector line," Marcus explained. "There's a tiny crack causing a leak. That's why the engine keeps stalling. If you replace the line and recalibrate the system, it should run smoothly." The head mechanic scoffed. "Are you sure about that? We checked the injectors already," Marcus shrugged. "Maybe you missed it. It's pretty small." Ryan Prescott, who had been watching silently from a distance, stepped forward. "Let's test it," he said firmly. "If he's wrong, we'll move on. But if he's right..." The mechanic reluctantly agreed, and within minutes, Marcus's diagnosis was confirmed. The cracked fuel injector line was indeed the culprit. As the team scrambled to fix it, Ryan approached Marcus, his expression unreadable. "How did you figure that out?" Ryan asked, clearly impressed. Marcus shrugged again. "Just paying attention, I guess." Ryan studied him for a moment, noticing the necklace dangling around Marcus's neck, a pair of pilot wings catching the sunlight. "Where'd you get those?" he asked. "They were my grandpa's," Marcus replied softly. "He taught me everything I know about planes. Always said I'd fly someday." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "Well, Marcus, thanks for saving the day. You're welcome here any time." As Marcus drove home later that evening, he couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in his life, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he belonged in a world far bigger than the one he'd grown up in. The next morning, Marcus woke up early, his mind still buzzing from the events of the previous day. He couldn't believe he'd actually fixed a private jet, a real, honest-to-goodness private jet, the kind of thing rich people used to fly, across the world without a care. And not only had he fixed it, but Ryan Prescott himself had thanked him. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie. As he sat at the kitchen table eating cereal, his mom walked in, coffee mug in hand. "So," she said with a teasing smile, "are you going to tell me how it went?" Marcus grinned. "It was wild. I mean, they were all staring at me like I didn't belong there. But then I found the problem. Turns out it was just a little crack in the fuel injector line." His mom raised an eyebrow. "A little crack? That sounds easy enough." "Not really," Marcus admitted. "It was super small and no one else noticed it. Even the mechanics thought I was crazy when I pointed it out. But once they checked, they realized I was right." "That's my boy," his mom said proudly, ruffling his hair. "Always proving them wrong." Marcus laughed, brushing her hand away. "Yeah, well, I don't think I'll be getting another call like that anytime soon. It was probably just a one-time thing." But deep down, he wasn't so sure. Something about the way Ryan had looked at him, like he saw potential where others saw doubt, stuck in Marcus's mind. He kept replaying their conversation, especially the part where Ryan asked about his necklace. Those pilot wings weren't just jewelry. They were a piece of his grandfather's legacy. They reminded Marcus of long summer days spent in his grandpa's workshop, listening to stories about planes and engines while learning how to use tools. His grandpa had always told him, "One day you'll soar higher than anyone expects." Marcus had never forgotten those words. Later that afternoon, as Marcus tinkered with an old radio in the garage, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text message, not a call, from an unknown number. Curious, he opened it. The message read, "Hey Marcus, this is Lydia. Mr. Prescott would like to meet with you tomorrow morning at our headquarters in Atlanta. Let me know if you're available." Marcus stared at the screen, his heart racing. A meeting with Ryan Prescott at his company's headquarters. What could Ryan possibly want with him now? He showed the text to his mom, who immediately encouraged him to say yes. "This could be a big opportunity for you," she said. "Don't let fear hold you back." After some hesitation, Marcus replied to Lydia, agreeing to the meeting. She quickly sent over the details, including the address and a reminder to dress professionally. Dress professionally? Marcus groaned inwardly. His wardrobe consisted mostly of jeans and hoodies. He'd have to borrow something from his uncle's closet. The following morning, Marcus stood in front of the mirror wearing a borrowed button-up shirt and slacks. He felt awkward and out of place, but his mom assured him he looked great. "Just be yourself," she said. "That's more than enough." When Marcus arrived at the sleek glass building that housed Ryan's company, he felt even more out of place. Men and women in expensive suits bustled around the lobby, chatting on phones and typing on laptops. The receptionist greeted him warmly and directed him to a conference room on the top floor. As the elevator doors opened, Marcus stepped into a modern, high-tech space filled with panoramic windows offering breathtaking views of the city. Lydia met him outside the conference room and led him inside. There, sitting at the head of a long table, was Ryan Prescott. "Marcus," Ryan said, standing up to shake his hand. "Thanks for coming in." "No problem," Marcus replied, trying to sound casual despite feeling nervous. He took a seat across from Ryan, who nodded for Lydia to leave them alone. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ryan leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus with a thoughtful expression. Finally, he broke the silence. "I've been thinking about what happened yesterday," he began. "You impressed me, Marcus. Not many people your age or even older could have done what you did." Marcus shrugged, unsure how to respond. "It wasn't that big of a deal. I just got lucky." Ryan shook his head. "Luck has nothing to do with it. You have a natural talent for understanding machines, and that takes more than luck. It takes skill and dedication." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Compliments weren't something he was used to receiving, especially from someone like Ryan. "So," Ryan continued, "I wanted to talk to you about an opportunity. My company owns a fleet of corporate jets, and we're always looking for ways to improve their performance and safety. I think you could help us with that." Marcus blinked in surprise. "Me? Help your company?" "Yes, you," Ryan said firmly. "You've already proven you can handle complex problems. I'd like to offer you a position as a junior aviation consultant. You'd work closely with our team to identify issues and suggest improvements. Plus, we'd provide training and resources to help you grow." Marcus's mind reeled. Was this really happening? A job offer from Ryan Prescott? It sounded too good to be true. But Marcus hesitated, his insecurities creeping in. "I'm just a kid. I don't have any formal education or experience." "You don't need a degree to have talent," Ryan countered. "Sometimes raw ability is more valuable than years of schooling. Besides, everyone starts somewhere. I started out working odd jobs before building my company. Age doesn't matter when you've got passion and drive." Marcus swallowed hard, trying to process everything Ryan was saying. Part of him wanted to jump at the chance, but another part worried about failing, or worse, embarrassing himself. "What do you say?" Ryan asked, leaning forward slightly. "Are you interested?" Marcus glanced down at his necklace, the pilot wings gleaming softly in the sunlight streaming through the window. He thought about his grandpa who had believed in him even when no one else did. He thought about all the times he'd been underestimated and how he'd always managed to prove people wrong. If he turned down this opportunity, he might regret it forever. Taking a deep breath, Marcus looked Ryan in the eye and nodded. "Okay," he said. "I'll do it." Ryan smiled, clearly pleased. "Great. Welcome to the team, Marcus. We'll start by introducing you to the aviation department and setting up a schedule that works for you. Don't worry, we'll make sure you're comfortable every step of the way. As Marcus left the building later that day, he couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was on the verge of something incredible. Sure, there would be challenges ahead, and plenty of people who doubted him. But Marcus knew he had what it took to rise above it all. After all, he'd been doing that his whole life. On the drive home, Marcus made a silent promise to himself and to his grandpa. No matter what obstacles came his way, he wouldn't give up. He'd keep fixing, learning, and growing until he reached his dreams. Because deep down he knew one thing for certain: he was meant to fly. The first few weeks of Marcus's new job were a whirlwind. Every day brought something new: meetings with engineers, tours of hangars, and lessons on advanced aviation systems. At first, Marcus felt completely out of his depth. The corporate world was nothing like the garage where he'd spent most of his life tinkering with machines. Everything here was sleek, polished, and intimidating. Even the coffee cups looked expensive. But Marcus didn't let that stop him. He threw himself into the work, determined to prove he belonged. His natural curiosity helped him pick things up quickly, and his hands-on experience gave him insights others sometimes missed. When the team struggled to diagnose a recurring issue with one of the jets, Marcus suggested checking the hydraulic lines, a detail no one else had considered. Sure enough, his hunch paid off, earning him nods of approval from even the most skeptical colleagues. Still, not everyone was thrilled about having a teenager on the team. Some of the older mechanics grumbled under their breath, questioning why someone so young had been given such an important role. Marcus heard the whispers but chose to ignore them. Instead, he focused on doing his job well and letting his actions speak for themselves. One afternoon, while reviewing maintenance logs in the office, Marcus found himself sitting across from Ryan Prescott. It wasn't uncommon for Ryan to drop by unannounced, checking in on projects or offering guidance. But today, he seemed unusually interested in Marcus's progress. "How's it going?" Ryan asked, leaning against the desk. "It's good," Marcus replied, flipping through a stack of papers. "I mean, there's a lot to learn, but I'm getting the hang of it." Ryan nodded. "I've heard good things about you. You're making waves around here." Marcus chuckled nervously. "I don't know about that. I'm just trying to keep up." "Well, don't sell yourself short," Ryan said with a smile. "You've already earned respect from people who aren't easy to impress. That's no small feat." Marcus glanced down at his necklace, the pilot wings still hanging proudly around his neck. They'd become a kind of lucky charm for him, a reminder of where he came from and what he was working toward. Ryan noticed them too. "Tell me more about those wings," he said, pointing to the necklace. "You mentioned your grandfather gave them to you?" Marcus hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, my grandpa served in the Air Force as a mechanic. He worked on planes during the war and stayed in the service for years after. Once he retired, he started teaching me everything he knew. We used to spend hours in his workshop fixing old engines and talking about flying. He always said I'd make a great pilot someday." "That's quite a legacy," Ryan said thoughtfully. "Did he teach you how to fly too?" Marcus shook his head. "No, we never got that far. Money was tight and learning to fly costs a lot, so I stuck to fixing things instead, but—" He paused, hesitating before continuing. "But I still want to be a pilot, someday." Ryan studied him for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the desk. "Why wait?" he asked. Marcus blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean, why put your dream on hold? If flying is what you really want, there's no reason you can't start now." "But," Marcus stammered, unsure how to respond. "It's not that simple. Flight school is expensive, and I don't even know if I'd be any good at it." "You won't know unless you try," Ryan countered. "And as for the cost, we can figure something out. Consider it part of your training here. After all, understanding how to fly will only make you better at maintaining planes." Marcus stared at Ryan, his mind racing. The idea of becoming a pilot had always felt like a distant dream, something he might achieve someday if he was lucky. But now, sitting in this high-tech office with a billionaire CEO encouraging him to chase his goals, it suddenly seemed possible. I don't know what to say, Marcus admitted quietly. Say yes, Ryan said simply. Trust me, Marcus. You've got the talent and the determination. All you need is the opportunity. For the rest of the day, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Ryan's words. Could he really do it? Could he become a pilot while working for one of the biggest companies in the country? It sounded impossible. But then again, so did fixing a private jet just a few months ago. And look how far he'd come since then. That evening, Marcus called his mom to share the news. She listened intently, her voice filled with pride when he finished explaining Ryan's offer. This is your chance, sweetheart, she said. Don't let fear hold you back. Your grandpa would be so proud of you. Her words stayed with him as he drifted off to sleep that night. For the first time in years, Marcus allowed himself to imagine a future where he wasn't just fixing planes. He was flying them too. Over the next few months, Marcus balanced his responsibilities at work with his flight school training. It wasn't easy juggling both, but he thrived on the challenge. Each lesson brought him closer to his dream, and each successful repair reinforced his confidence. Slowly but surely, he began earning the respect of his coworkers, including those who had doubted him at first. One particularly memorable day, Marcus returned to the hangar after completing his solo flight exam. As he walked in, wearing his freshly earned pilot's uniform, the entire team erupted into applause. Even the grumpiest mechanic clapped, a rare smile breaking through his usual scowl. Marcus felt a lump rise in his throat as he realized how far he'd come, from a kid in a garage to a certified pilot working alongside experts in the field. Afterward, Ryan pulled him aside. Congratulations, he said, shaking Marcus's hand. You deserve every bit of this success. Thank you, Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. I couldn't have done it without your support. Ryan waved him off. Nonsense. You did the hard work. I just opened the door. Now it's up to you to keep walking through it. As Marcus stood there, surrounded by the hum of engines and the smell of jet fuel, he felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for Ryan, but for everyone who had believed in him along the way. From his grandpa's patient lessons to his mom's unwavering encouragement, every step of his journey had led him here. And as he gazed out at the runway, watching planes take off into the endless blue sky, Marcus knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. Marcus's life had changed in ways he never imagined. Between his job at Ryan's company and his flight school training, every day was packed with challenges and opportunities. He was learning more than he ever thought possible, not just about planes, but about himself. He discovered that he could handle pressure, solve complex problems, and earn the respect of people who initially doubted him. Yet, despite all the progress, Marcus still faced moments of doubt. One morning, as he arrived at the hangar for another busy day, Marcus overheard two mechanics talking. Their voices were low, but their words carried across the room. Kid's got talent, I'll give him that, one said. But does he really belong here? This isn't some garage. It's a professional operation. The other mechanic shrugged. Ryan seems to like him, so what can we do? Still, I don't see how a teenager can keep up with everything we're throwing at him. Marcus froze, gripping the strap of his toolbox tightly. He wanted to walk away, pretend he hadn't heard, but the words stung. No matter how much he proved himself, there would always be people who didn't think he was good enough. For a moment, he felt the weight of their skepticism pressing down on him, threatening to crush his confidence. But then he remembered something his grandpa used to say. Critics are loud, but they're also lazy. They'll talk, sure, but they won't work as hard as you will. Taking a deep breath, Marcus squared his shoulders and stepped into the hangar. If he couldn't win everyone over, that was fine. He'd focus on doing his best and let his results speak for themselves. Later that day, Marcus was assigned to assist with a major project, a complete overhaul of one of the company's older jets. The aircraft had been grounded for months due to persistent issues, and the team was under pressure to get it back in the air. It was a daunting task, especially for someone with limited experience, but Marcus didn't hesitate. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. As the days turned into weeks, Marcus poured everything he had into the project. He studied manuals, asked endless questions, and stayed late to double-check his work. His dedication didn't go unnoticed. One evening, as he was reviewing maintenance logs, Ryan walked into the hangar. "Still here?" Ryan asked, raising an eyebrow. Marcus looked up from his clipboard. "Yeah, just making sure everything's perfect before tomorrow's test flight." Ryan nodded approvingly. "You've come a long way since that first day, you know that, right?" "I'm trying," Marcus replied modestly. "There's still a lot I don't know." "That's true for all of us," Ryan said with a chuckle. "Even me. But you've got something most people don't. Grit. You don't give up no matter how tough things get." Marcus smiled faintly, appreciating the compliment but unsure how to respond. Instead, he changed the subject. "Do you think we'll pass the inspection tomorrow?" "We will if you have anything to say about it," Ryan said confidently. "I trust your judgment, Marcus. If anyone can get this plane ready, it's you." The next morning, the entire team gathered around the jet as inspectors conducted their final checks. Tension filled the air. This was the moment of truth. When the lead inspector finally gave the thumbs up, signaling that the plane was cleared for takeoff, the hangar erupted into cheers. Marcus felt a surge of pride as he watched the jet taxi down the runway and lift gracefully into the sky. It wasn't just a victory for the team, it was a personal triumph for him. Afterward, Ryan pulled Marcus aside once again. "Great work, today," he said. "You've earned this success, and I hope you realize how valuable you are to this company." "Thank you," Marcus replied, his voice steady but filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without everyone's help." "That may be true," Ryan admitted, "but leadership is about more than following instructions. It's about stepping up when it matters, and that's exactly what you did." As the weeks went by, Marcus continued to grow in both skill and confidence. His flight school training progressed smoothly, and he began taking on more responsibilities at work. Ryan encouraged him to attend industry conferences and network with other aviation professionals, knowing it would broaden Marcus's perspective. At first, Marcus felt out of place among seasoned experts, but he quickly realized that his unique background gave him insights others lacked. One conference, held in a sleek convention center in downtown Atlanta, stood out in particular. Marcus listened intently as speakers discussed advancements in aviation technology and shared stories of overcoming obstacles. During a break, he found himself chatting with a group of engineers about innovative ways to improve fuel efficiency. To his surprise, they were genuinely interested in his ideas, asking thoughtful questions and offering feedback. When the conference ended, Marcus returned to the office feeling inspired. He pitched several of the concepts he'd discussed to Ryan, who immediately saw their potential. "Let's run with it," Ryan said enthusiastically. "If anyone can make these ideas work, it's you." With Ryan's support, Marcus led a small team tasked with implementing one of the proposals, a system designed to reduce fuel consumption during long flights. It was a massive undertaking, requiring collaboration between engineers, pilots, and maintenance crews. But Marcus tackled the challenge head-on, drawing on everything he'd learned so far. Slowly but surely, the project began to take shape. Throughout the process, Marcus often reflected on how far he'd come. From fixing lawnmowers in his garage to leading a cutting-edge initiative at a major corporation, his journey had been anything but ordinary. Every setback had taught him resilience, and every success had reinforced his belief in himself. Even the skeptics who had doubted him early on were starting to come around, acknowledging his contributions and seeking his input. One evening, as Marcus sat in the cockpit of a newly upgraded jet, preparing for a test flight, he touched the pilot, wings around his neck. They were more than just a memento now. They were a symbol of perseverance and possibility. His grandpa had always believed in him, even when others didn't. And now, thanks to Ryan's guidance and his own hard work, Marcus was proving that belief right. As the plane soared above the clouds, Marcus gazed out the window, marveling at the view. For years, he'd dreamed of flying, of seeing the world from above. Now that dream was a reality. But it wasn't just about flying anymore. It was about breaking barriers, defying expectations, and showing the world what he was capable of. And, as Marcus guided the jet through the open sky, he knew this was only the beginning. There were still challenges ahead, still goals to achieve. But for the first time in his life, he felt truly unstoppable. By the time Marcus turned 19, he had become a key figure at Ryan's company. His innovative ideas and hands-on approach had earned him a reputation not just within the aviation department, but across the entire organization. He was no longer the quiet teenager who walked into meetings unsure of himself. Now he carried himself with confidence, speaking up in discussions and offering solutions that others hadn't considered. Yet despite his growing success, Marcus never lost sight of where he came from, or the people who had helped him along the way. One Friday afternoon, as Marcus wrapped up a meeting with the engineering team, Lydia approached him with an excited grin. "You've got a visitor," she said, nodding toward the lobby. Curious, Marcus followed her out of the conference room. Standing near the reception desk was his mom, looking both proud and slightly overwhelmed by the sleek surroundings. "Mom," Marcus asked, surprised, "what are you doing here?" She smiled warmly, pulling him into a hug. "I wanted to see where my son spends all his time. Plus, I brought you some lunch." She held up a brown paper bag filled with homemade food. Marcus laughed, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. "Thanks, Mom. You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," she replied firmly. "Besides, I haven't seen you in weeks. You're always working or flying somewhere." Ryan happened to walk by just then and stopped when he saw them. "Ah, this must be your mom," he said, extending a hand. "It's great to finally meet you." Marcus introduced them, watching as his mom shook Ryan's hand with a mix of awe and pride. "Thank you for everything you've done for Marcus," she said sincerely. "He talks about you all the time." Ryan chuckled. "All I did was give him a chance. The rest is thanks to his hard work." After a quick chat, Ryan excused himself, leaving Marcus and his mom alone. They found a quiet corner in the cafeteria to eat lunch together. As they sat there, catching up on life outside of work, Marcus couldn't help but feel a deep sense of fulfillment. Seeing his mom in this environment, a world far removed from their modest home, reminded him how much he'd achieved in such a short time. "You know," his mom said between bites, "your grandpa would be so proud of you. He always knew you were destined for big things." Marcus nodded, glancing down at the pilot wings around his neck. "Yeah, I think about him every day. Sometimes when I'm flying, it feels like he's sitting right next to me, guiding me." His mom reached over and squeezed his hand. "He is, sweetheart. In his own way, he's still with you." The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but Marcus's thoughts lingered on his grandpa. He often wondered what advice his grandpa would give him now, as he navigated the complexities of his new life. Would he tell him to keep pushing forward, to embrace every opportunity? Or would he remind him to stay grounded, to remember the values they shared? Later that evening, after saying goodbye to his mom, Marcus decided to visit his grandpa's old workshop. It was tucked away in the backyard of his childhood home, untouched since his grandpa's passing. Stepping inside felt like stepping back in time. Tools hung neatly on pegboards, and shelves were lined with jars of screws, bolts, and other odds and ends. A faint smell of oil and metal lingered in the air, bringing back memories of long days spent learning and laughing together. Marcus wandered around the space, running his fingers over familiar objects. In one corner, he found a dusty photo album and flipped it open. Inside were pictures of his grandpa in uniform, standing beside planes during his Air Force days. There were also snapshots of Marcus as a child, holding wrenches twice his size and grinning ear to ear. Looking at those photos, Marcus realized something important. His journey wasn't just about personal success. It was about honoring his grandpa's legacy and inspiring others to chase their dreams no matter how impossible they seemed. Determined to pay tribute to his grandpa in a meaningful way, Marcus came up with an idea. He pitched it to Ryan the following Monday during their weekly check-in. "What if we start a program to mentor kids from underserved communities?" Marcus suggested. "We could teach them about aviation, mechanics, and even offer scholarships. For flight school, it could change lives just like mine was changed." Ryan leaned back in his chair, clearly intrigued. "That's a fantastic idea, Marcus. We've got the resources, we just need someone passionate enough to lead it. Are you volunteering?" Marcus hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes. I want to show kids that they can achieve anything if they work hard and believe in themselves. And maybe I can inspire them the way my grandpa inspired me." Ryan smiled. "Consider it done. Let's make it happen." Over the next few months, Marcus threw himself into planning the program. He worked closely with the company's outreach team to design workshops, secure funding, and recruit participants. When the first session launched, Marcus stood nervously in front of a group of teenagers, many of whom reminded him of his younger self. They listened intently as he shared his story, explaining how fixing lawnmowers had led to fixing jets and eventually to flying planes. At the end of the presentation, a shy girl raised her hand. "Do you really think someone like me could do what you did?" she asked softly. Marcus knelt down to her level, meeting her gaze. "Absolutely," he said firmly. "If I can do it, so can you. All you need is passion, determination, and someone who believes in you. And I believe in you." The girl smiled, her eyes lighting up with hope. Watching her reaction, Marcus felt a surge of pride. This was why he'd started the program, not just to teach skills, but to plant seeds of possibility in young minds. As the weeks went by, Marcus continued balancing his responsibilities at work with leading the mentorship program. It wasn't easy, but seeing the impact he was making made it all worthwhile. One participant, a boy named Jamal, showed particular promise. Like Marcus, Jamal had a knack for fixing things and a dream of becoming a pilot. Marcus took him under his wing, sharing tips and encouraging him to pursue his goals. During one session, Jamal pulled Marcus aside. "Thanks for believing in me," he said quietly. "No one else ever has." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know how that feels. Just remember, you're capable of more than you think. Keep pushing and don't let anyone tell you otherwise." By the end of the year, the program had grown significantly, attracting attention from local media and community leaders. Marcus was invited to speak at events, sharing his journey and advocating for greater opportunities in STEM fields for underrepresented youth. Each speech reinforced his belief that everyone deserved a chance to succeed, regardless of their background. One evening, as Marcus reflected on the past year, he realized how much he'd grown, not just professionally, but personally. He'd gone from being a kid in a garage to a leader inspiring others to reach for the skies. The road ahead was still long, filled with challenges and uncertainties, but Marcus faced it with unwavering determination. As he looked out at the Atlanta skyline from his apartment window, Marcus touched the pilot wings around his neck once more. They represented more than his grandpa's legacy. They symbolized resilience, ambition, and the power of believing in oneself. And as he prepared for another day of breaking barriers and chasing dreams, Marcus knew one thing for certain. The sky was no longer the limit. It was just the beginning. Years passed, and Marcus Johnson became a name people recognized, not just within Ryan's company, but across the aviation industry. His innovative ideas had transformed the way corporate fleets operated, saving millions of dollars in fuel costs and improving safety standards. The mentorship program he'd started had grown into a nationwide initiative, inspiring thousands of young people to pursue careers in aviation and engineering. Yet despite his success, Marcus remained grounded, always remembering the values instilled in him by his grandpa and the lessons he'd learned along the way. One crisp autumn morning, Marcus stood on the tarmac of a private airstrip, watching as a sleek jet taxied toward him. It wasn't just any jet. It was the first aircraft designed entirely under his leadership. From its advanced fuel-efficient engines to its state-of-the-art navigation systems, every detail reflected years of hard work and dedication. As the plane came to a stop, Marcus felt a mix of pride and nostalgia. This moment marked the culmination of everything he'd fought for, everything he'd dreamed of. Ryan stepped out of the jet, grinning from ear to ear. "Well?" he asked, spreading his arms wide. "What do you think?" Marcus shook his head, still amazed. "It's incredible. I can't believe we actually did it." "You did it," Ryan corrected, clapping him on the back. "This is your vision brought to life. You should be proud." As they walked around the aircraft, inspecting its features, Marcus thought about how far he'd come. When he'd first fixed that broken jet at 17, he never imagined he'd one day design his own. Back then, he was just a kid trying to prove himself. Now he was a leader shaping the future of aviation. Later that day, Marcus attended a ceremony celebrating the launch of the new jet. Executives, engineers, and pilots gathered in a hangar decorated with banners and balloons. Speeches were given. Applause echoed through the room and cameras flashed as Marcus accepted an award for his contributions to the project. But the highlight of the event came when Ryan took the stage to make an announcement. "Today isn't just about celebrating a remarkable achievement," Ryan began, looking out at the crowd. "It's also about recognizing the person who made it all possible. Marcus Johnson has not only revolutionized our fleet, but has inspired countless others to follow their dreams. So, in honor of his dedication and leadership, we've decided to rename this aircraft the Marcus Johnson 1. The room erupted into cheers as Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed by emotion. He glanced at Ryan, who simply smiled and nodded. For a moment, Marcus struggled to find words. Finally, he stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady but filled with gratitude. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, pausing to collect himself. "This is more than I ever could have hoped for. But I didn't get here alone. My grandpa taught me how to dream big. My mom believed in me even when times were tough, and Ryan, well, he gave me a chance when no one else would." He paused, scanning the faces of the audience. Many of them were former participants in his mentorship program, now working in various roles across the industry. "To everyone here tonight, thank you. Thank you for believing in me, for supporting me, and for helping me turn my dreams into reality. I hope this jet serves as a reminder that anything is possible if you're willing to work for it." After the ceremony, Marcus found himself standing alone on the runway, gazing up at the stars. The night was cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the excitement of the evening. He touched the pilot wings around his neck, feeling their familiar weight. They had been with him through every step of his journey, from fixing lawnmowers in his garage to designing cutting-edge jets. His phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a text message from Jamal, the boy he'd mentored years ago. "Hey Marcus," it read. "Just wanted to let you know I passed my pilot's exam today. Couldn't have done it without you. Thanks for everything." Marcus smiled, his chest swelling with pride. Reading those words reminded him why he'd started the mentorship program in the first place, to create opportunities for others, just as Ryan had done for him. He quickly typed a reply. "Congrats, Jamal. You earned this. Keep flying high. As mime." He tucked his phone away. Marcus thought about all the lives he'd touched over the years. The kids he'd mentored, the colleagues he'd inspired, the skeptics he'd proven wrong. They were all part of his story now. And while he knew there would always be challenges ahead, he faced them with confidence, knowing he wasn't alone. Next morning, Marcus arrived early at the hangar to prepare for a test flight of the Marcus Johnson 1. As he climbed into the cockpit, he took a moment to soak it all in. The controls felt familiar beneath his hands, yet everything about this experience was new. He glanced at the plaque mounted near the dashboard, engraved with the words, "Dedicated to dreams that take flight." With a deep breath, Marcus powered up the engines and guided the jet down the runway. As the wheels lifted off the ground, he felt a rush of exhilaration. This wasn't just another flight, it was a testament to perseverance, passion, and the power of believing in oneself. High above the clouds, Marcus reflected on his journey. He thought about his grandpa, whose stories of planes and courage had sparked his love for aviation. He thought about his mom, who had worked tirelessly to provide for their family while encouraging him to chase his dreams. And he thought about Ryan, whose faith in him had opened doors he never knew existed. But most of all, Marcus thought about the future. There were still challenges to overcome, innovations to create, and dreams to inspire. The sky might have been his playground now, but it wasn't the end of his journey. It was just the beginning. As the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Marcus smiled. He had come so far, but he knew there was still more to do. With determination in his heart and the legacy of those who had supported him guiding his path, Marcus soared onward, ready to take on whatever lay ahead. And as the Marcus Johnson 1 glided smoothly through the open sky, Marcus knew one thing for certain. He was exactly where he was meant to be,